The breaking point. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the Nexus Hub, the largest space station in the Omega sector. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she watched the endless flow of alien ships docking and departing. For 20 years, she had worked as the station's chief engineer, but today would be her last day. Her communicator buzzed. It was Michael Okafor, head of maintenance for the entire sector. His dark face appeared on the holographic display, looking tired but determined. "It's time, Sarah," he said quietly. "Earth has given the order. Operation Silent Key begins in 24 hours. Sarah nodded. After decades of being treated as second-class citizens in the Intergalactic Alliance, humanity had finally had enough. The final straw came last week when the Vexian Empire claimed credit for the revolutionary medical breakthrough that Dr. Elena Martinez had spent her life developing. The cure for the Crimson Death Plague would save billions, but not a single human would receive recognition. The Intergalactic Alliance had underestimated humanity for too long. They saw humans as simple technicians, useful for maintaining their grand civilizations, but nothing more. They failed to realize that over the past century, humans had become the backbone of galactic infrastructure. Sarah made her way through the station's corridors. Alien beings of various shapes and sizes moved past her, none paying attention to the human engineer they had grown so accustomed to seeing. A group of Tyrillian merchants argued about shipping routes, their tentacle-like appendages waving in agitation. Two Zephyrian diplomats glided by, their crystalline bodies refracting the station's artificial light. None of them suspected what was coming. In the engineering bay, Sarah found her team of 30 humans working diligently at their stations. These men and women kept the massive station operational, managing everything from life support to power distribution. Without them, the Nexus Hub would fall apart within days. "Everyone," Sarah called out, "meeting in the conference room. Now." Once the team had gathered, Sarah activated the privacy shield. The room's walls shimmered as sound-dampening fields engaged. "I've received confirmation from Earth," she announced. "Operation Silent Key begins tomorrow. Each of you knows your role. We begin preparations immediately." Thomas Weber, her second-in-command, spoke up. "Are we certain about this? The consequences will be severe." Sarah understood his concern. When humans withdrew from their positions across the galaxy, billions of aliens would suffer. But humanity had tried diplomacy for decades. They had filed countless petitions, made reasonable requests, and demonstrated their worth repeatedly. Each time, they were dismissed, belittled, or ignored. "For 80 years, we've maintained their stations, repaired their ships, and kept their worlds running," Sarah replied. "We've asked for nothing but respect and fair treatment. Instead, they steal our inventions and treat us like servants. It ends now." Over the next 24 hours, Sarah and her team made subtle adjustments throughout the station. They programmed time-delayed shutdowns, created password-protected access points, and carefully documented critical systems that only they understood. Similar preparations were happening on thousands of worlds and stations across the galaxy. On Earth, President Maria Rodriguez sat in the Global Defense Command bunker. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing the positions of human personnel throughout known space. Beside her stood Admiral James Carter, commander of Earth's fleet. "Madam President," Admiral Carter reported, "all extraction vessels are in position. We can evacuate 95% of our people within 12 hours. And the remaining 5%? Rodriguez asked. "Deep cover operatives and those in remote locations. They have contingency plans and will make their way to designated pickup points over the following week." Rodriguez turned to Dr. William Foster, head of the Scientific Advisory Council. "What's our assessment of the impact?" Foster adjusted his glasses nervously. "Based on our models, 30% of galactic infrastructure will fail within the first 48 hours. Communication networks, power grids, transportation hubs, they all depend on human maintenance crews. Within a week, we estimate total system collapse in at least 15 major sectors." Casualties. If the Alliance acts quickly and rationally, minimal. But if they panic or delay, Foster trailed off, the implications clear. Rodriguez stood and addressed the room. For decades, we've contributed to the galactic community. We've shared our knowledge, our labor, and our innovations. In return, we faced discrimination, theft, and dismissal. Today, we show them exactly how much they depend on us. As Earth's leaders finalized their plans, the first phase of Operation Silent Key began. Across the galaxy, humans quietly completed their final tasks. On mining colonies, they secured dangerous equipment. In hospitals, they ensured backup systems were operational. On military vessels, they programmed navigation computers with return coordinates. Sarah Chen finished her last system check on the Nexus hub. Everything was ready. She gathered her personal belongings and headed for the docking bay where a human transport waited. As she walked through the station one final time, she wondered if the aliens would understand the message humanity was sending. At precisely 800 Earth Standard Time, the withdrawal began. On the Nexus hub, Sarah and her team boarded their ship and departed. Within minutes, the station's primary systems began to falter. Lights flickered, gravity fluctuated, and environmental controls struggled to maintain optimal conditions. Station Commander Vexnath, a tall reptilian saurian, stormed into the engineering bay to find it empty. "Where are the humans?" he demanded of his bewildered staff. They've all left, Commander," stammered a junior officer. "Every single one." Vexnath's scales shifted to a pale green, indicating alarm. "Impossible. Who will maintain the systems?" Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On the agricultural world of plenty, vast automated farms ground to a halt when their human operators disappeared. The Kryn, who had never bothered to learn the intricacies of their own food production systems, watched helplessly as crops began to wither. On the pleasure planet of Elysium, luxury resorts descended into chaos as power systems failed and sanitation broke down. The wealthy alien tourists, accustomed to human staff handling every detail, found themselves unable to operate even basic equipment. In the Meridian shipyards, construction on the Alliance's newest battlecruiser stopped abruptly. The Tarketh engineers discovered that humans had been responsible for all the complex integration work. Without them, the half-finished vessel was nothing but an expensive shell. By the end of the first day, emergency meetings were being called across Alliance space. High Counselor Zarthax of the Vexian Empire addressed his fellow leaders via a stuttering holographic connection. The quantum communication network was already failing. "This is an act of rebellion," Zarthax declared. "The humans must be punished." But Admiral Kretok of the Zephyrian Confederacy disagreed. "Punish them. We can barely maintain life support on half our stations. Our military vessels are stranded. Our trade routes are collapsing. We need the humans back." As arguments raged in the council chambers, the true scope of the crisis became apparent. Humans hadn't just maintained systems, they had been the vital link connecting the entire galactic civilization. Their withdrawal exposed how completely the Alliance had come to depend on the species they had so carelessly dismissed. On Earth, President Rodriguez watched the unfolding chaos with grim satisfaction. Humanity had finally made its point, but at what cost? The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about the price of arrogance and the value of the beings they had taken for granted. The first part of Operation Silent Key was complete. Now, the galaxy would have to decide whether to negotiate or suffer the consequences of a universe without human hands to keep it running. The Great Collapse. 3 days into Operation Silent Key, the Intergalactic Alliance teetered on the brink of collapse. High Counselor Zarthax stood in his darkened command center on Vexus Prime, emergency lights casting an eerie glow across his scaled features. The mighty Vexian Empire, which had ruled 1,000 systems for millennia, was being brought to its knees by the absence of a species they had considered inferior. "Status report," Zarthax demanded, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. His aide, A younger Vexian named Kelamar consulted a flickering datapad. Power reserves at 37% and falling. Food distribution has ceased in 9 major cities. Medical facilities report critical failures in life support systems. Transportation networks. Kelmar paused, his scales shifting to a distressed yellow. Transportation networks are completely offline. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. On the oceanic world of Aquarian, the Delphini faced an environmental catastrophe as their water purification systems failed. The crystalline beings had never learned to maintain the complex machinery that had always been human work. In the Nexus hub, Commander Vexnath struggled to keep his station operational. His engineering staff, composed of various alien species, stared helplessly at control panels they barely understood. Warning lights blinked urgently across every console. "Can't anyone fix this?" Vexnath roared. Sub-Commander Threll, a 4-armed Cantarian, shook his head. The humans encrypted their access codes. Even if we could understand the systems, we can't override their lockouts. The situation worsened by the hour. Trade ships drifted in space, their navigation systems offline. Mining operations ceased as automated equipment shut down. Communication networks fragmented, leaving entire sectors isolated. On the frontier world of Haven's End, Governor Celine watched her colony descend into chaos. The terraforming equipment that maintained the planet's atmosphere had stopped functioning. Without human technicians to repair it, the air would become unbreathable within weeks. "We must contact Earth," Celine told her advisors. "Pride means nothing if we all suffocate." But contacting Earth proved nearly impossible. The quantum communication network, maintained exclusively by human technicians, had collapsed. Messages had to be sent by courier ships, many of which were stranded without functional navigation systems. 5 days after the withdrawal began, the Intergalactic Alliance Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall on Central Prime. The usually gleaming chamber was dim, its advanced holographic systems offline. "We have no choice." Admiral Kretok addressed the assembly. "We must send a delegation to Earth and negotiate the humans' return." High Counselor Zarathax slammed his fist on the table. "Negotiate? With rebels? The Vexian Empire does not bow to lesser species." "Lesser species," the Delphini ambassador's watery voice carried across the chamber. "These lesser species kept our civilization running. Without them, we face extinction within months." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Even Zarthax's own advisors seemed uncomfortable with his stance. Ambassador Yura of the Ethereal Collective floated forward. "I volunteer to lead the delegation to Earth. We must approach with humility and respect." After heated debate, the Council agreed. A delegation consisting of Yura, Admiral Kretok, and even a reluctant Zarthax would travel to Earth. They departed on one of the few ships still capable of interstellar travel, ironically, a human-designed vessel. On Earth, President Rodriguez received word of the approaching delegation. She convened her advisory council in the Global Defense Command Center. "They're coming to negotiate," Admiral Carter reported. "Their ship will arrive in 36 hours. Dr. Foster raised a concern. "Some of our analysts worry we've pushed too far. The death toll is rising. Food shortages, medical emergencies, environmental failures. Thousands have already died." Rodriguez's expression hardened. "And how many humans died over the decades from inadequate medical care because our discoveries were stolen? How many suffered because we were denied fair trade rights? This action wasn't taken lightly, Doctor." When the alien delegation arrived, they were escorted to the United Earth Assembly Hall in Geneva. The contrast between the failing alien infrastructure and Earth's fully functional facilities was stark. The aliens noticed how smoothly everything operated, how advanced human technology had become while hidden in plain sight. President Rodriguez met them in the assembly chamber, flanked by representatives from every major Earth nation. The aliens, accustomed to looking down on humans, now found themselves in the position of supplicants. Ambassador Yura spoke first, her ethereal form shimmering. President Rodriguez, we come seeking reconciliation. The Intergalactic Alliance acknowledges the critical role humans play in our civilization. Now you acknowledge it, Rodriguez replied coolly. After decades of theft, discrimination, and dismissal, High Counselor Zarthak stepped forward, his pride visibly warring with necessity. What are your terms for returning to your positions? Rodriguez activated a holographic display, showing a detailed list of demands. Full membership in the Intergalactic Alliance with equal voting rights. Recognition and compensation for all stolen human innovations. Fair trade agreements with no discriminatory tariffs. Human oversight of critical infrastructure with appropriate authority. Establishment of human educational institutions across Alliance space. Formal apology from the Alliance Council. The aliens studied the demands in silence. Finally, Admiral Kretok spoke. These terms are reasonable, but implementation will take time. Time is something you don't have, Rodriguez pointed out. Every hour that passes, more systems fail. We're prepared to begin returning personnel immediately upon agreement, but full restoration will depend on your compliance. The negotiations continued for hours. In the end, the aliens had little choice but to accept humanity's terms. The alternative was the complete collapse of galactic civilization. As documents were signed and transmitted across what remained of the communication network, President Rodriguez addressed both the alien delegation and the people of Earth. Let this be a lesson to all. No species is superior or inferior. We all contribute to the tapestry of civilization. Humanity seeks not dominance, but equality. We offer our skills, our knowledge, and our dedication, but never again as servants. From this day forward, we stand as equals among the stars. Within hours of the agreement, human ships began returning personnel to their posts. Sarah Chen led her team back to the Nexus Hub, where they immediately began restoration procedures. Across the galaxy, systems slowly came back online. The crisis had lasted only 7 days, but its impact would resonate for generations. The Intergalactic Alliance had learned a valuable lesson about the true worth of every species, and humanity had finally claimed its rightful place among the stars. As Sarah Chen restored power to the Nexus Hub's main reactor, she smiled. Sometimes, it took shutting down the galaxy to make it see the light.